I wanted to take a quick second because it'd be hard for me to talk to Dave Ramsey without talking about debt. And a lot of people, so in my audience, I'm kind of debt agnostic. I don't talk much about it. But a lot of people don't know that I actually have no debt either. And so everything I've bought to this point in my life has been cash. Now, I'm not against debt. I just kind of like talk about, when I get right at the edge of something, I end up not doing it. It's been that way with most kind of loan things in general. And I read Total Money Makeover years ago. And you had this line in there about debt that was, I'm going to try and say it back to you as I understood it, because there's obviously the biblical component, but for everyone who might not believe in that, I wanted to give at least my rational understanding of how you see it, which is that debt introduces risk. And risk, when compounded over a long enough time horizon, no matter how big a number you acquire, any number multiplied by 0 is still 0. And so if you know that you're going to be playing this game for a very long time, even a small amount of risk when you're going 200 miles an hour can flip the car. That was my understanding of how you saw debt. Is that accurate? That's how I saw it, or at least I interpreted your view on debt.
Now, that line is actually from Warren Buffett. He in one of his famous annual reports, they're very cheeky and fun to read, and especially the opening paragraphs or so. In one of those, he was talking about in a down year like '08. We soon discover that leverage is not always your friend. That, those of us that can do math realize that any number multiplied by 0 is going to equal 0. And debt does that for you. So it's again, having grown up in the real estate business, one thing you're going to do in the real estate business when I was growing up, if you said, I'm going to be a real estate investor, they took you to the hospital, they took out your risk meter, and they broke it with a hammer, and they put it back in. You're not allowed to perceive risk if you're going to be a real estate guy, because it's glass half full. We're eternal optimists. Everything's going to work out because real estate's always awesome. It's just awesomeness on parade. You can't mess this up. The renters will pay your rent. God, I'll pay your mortgage. How can you mess this up? And so if a little bit of leverage is good, then a lot of leverage is amazing. and that's how I went broke. I leveraged up to my eyeballs had a bunch of short-term notes, and the bank did the unthinkable and called my notes when they got sold to another bank, and they saw a 26-year-old kid owed them $1.2 million on the 90-day notes doing flips. And this was before Chip and Joanna told us how to do it. And so do a flip. Oh, my God. And we didn't have HG channel to tell us how to fix up a house. Without cable TV, I did this stuff. And so so that's where it came from. And then what happened to me, because I lost everything following the borrow all you can because it works plan, I had to stop and go, I think I've got a bad set of rules. The playbook I've got sucks. I keep losing. And my kids are getting skinny. I mean, this is not working.
Right.
So when I did that, the first, as you said, the first door I went through was had just become a Christian, and so I started studying the Bible. And so as a matter of faith, I started reading scriptures, and all the scriptures say negative things about debt. It doesn't say it's a sin. It doesn't say you're going to hell, but it's stuff like the borrower's slave to the lender. You're a fool if you cosign. I mean, it says these things in Scripture. And then you talk to old rich people, and they go, well, you stay out of debt, boy, and okay, that's kind of God's and grandma's ways of doing it. So what did I miss in academia when I fell in love with leverage from an academic viewpoint? Because it's incongruent to me that if this book of wisdom and these people that are long in the tooth with gray hair that have proof, social proof, they've got money and they kept it, are all saying avoid debt. What is it that we're missing in academic land with my intellect? So spiritual, social proof, now I got to solve it intellectually. And what I ended up doing, I ended up speaking at Vanderbilt to a group of MBAs early in my career, and it forced me to, because I knew I was going to go in there and get tackled, right? Because they're going to go, you're a primitive moron, you believe the Bible, you don't know anything, and you don't know how to do math. And I know how to do math. As a matter of fact, it's about all I know how to do. I'm a math guy. So what I figured out was that in business debt or real estate debt, business is not publicly traded. No one includes all the math. They leave out a risk factor associated with debt mathematically. And so we look at a very inaccurate and primitive measure of leverage. And so if I can borrow this money at 2% and I can invest it at 8%, why am I not making 6%? Well, A, you left out inflation. B, you left out taxes. But aside from that, and that's pretty basic because this is the argument. It's that it is that the argument is that primitive.
Right.
But you did not adjust for the risk you took on. Because I think we can all agree if you have a business that's doing $10 million top line and you've got $12 million in debt, you have a lot more risk than if you had $2 million in debt. Mm-hmm. And even $2 million is more risk than if you had zero debt. Mm-hmm. We can agree that debt is equal to risk. Mm-hmm. And if we can agree to that, then we ought to be able to assign, if we're going to really get down in the analytical jungle, we can assign a mathematical formula to that. Well, ta-da, there is one. It already exists. We just never applied it in that. In the investment world, they teach us to adjust. You don't compare an aggressive growth stock mutual fund that has a high peaks and valleys on the graph, volatile, with a growth and income fund, which has almost no peaks and valleys. So a growth and income fund may have a beta of a 0.8, meaning it is only 80% as risky as the S&P. When you're comparing it to an aggressive growth stock mutual fund that might have a 2.0, meaning it's twice as volatile, risky. And so in that world, we're taught, I mean, one of the first things you learn doing financial analysis in that world is you use the beta as an inverse in the math, and you flip it on its head, and you multiply it through, and you adjust for risk mathematically. So that you can then say, after you adjust for the volatility, the 0.8 versus the 2.0 versus the S&P is a 1.0, it's your baseline. When you adjust for that risk, the perceived return of the aggressive growth stock mutual fund at 20% rate of return, where the other one's making 11.2, it goes away. It neutralizes it. And you might end up with risk adjusted, that 11.2 will come up, and the 20% will come down, risk adjusted, and then you can actually compare apples to apples. But you've risk adjusted for the volatility and mathematically. We don't do that in business.
Right.
We just go, oh, I want to buy a bulldozer. Let's go get $50,000 at the bank.
Yeah.
And I think I can do it. I think we can push some dirt. And that is your risk analysis. Well, kiss my butt. That is dumb, okay? And people do that all the time. And so what I determined is that I'm going to go, if you want to compare two dry cleaners, one has debt, one doesn't, I've got to risk adjust for that mathematically, and you have to apply a beta formula to that. I presented that to this group of MBAs, and they're all sitting there with their jaws on their lap going, no one ever said that. And I said, it's because it's never been said. No one does it in the world. No one does. No, you're not trained this way. You're trained that way in only one bucket of finance. All the other buckets of finance, zero real estate people do this. Zero. None. They do not analyze risk. And so if you take risk out, then unlimited leverage is logical. But if you say unlimited leverage, they go, oh, not quite. Maybe 80%, maybe a 70%, maybe a LTV, right? And, but if you push them up to the edge, they can actually feel it a little bit because there's a remnant of a risk meter in there, but it just doesn't function anymore. That's where that came from.
No, I love it.
Probably more than you wanted, but
No, I wanted to kind of hear your take on it, and because obviously, in the business acquisition world, there's also debt that's factored in. Now we've done all cash deals up to this point, but I wanted to just kind of hear your take on it. And I quote Warren Buffett a lot. He's a big
But even in the publicly traded realm, we were taught and still taught, bonds are debt. Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking at a company with publicly traded stock, it has a heavy bond weight. Yeah. You discount the P/E. You don't compare that stock apples to apples with a company that has no bond rate, zero bonds. They have zero debt. They don't have bank debt. They don't have short-term debt. They're sitting over there debt-free. You would give them some benefit on their stock analysis mathematically. We're taught to do that. But again, it does not transfer from the mutual fund world or the publicly traded world to the real estate world or the
small business world.
Small business, privately held businesses don't even. I mean, I know people that do have $1 billion top line, and honestly, they don't even look at. They just a lot of them just don't borrow money. They don't even know why they don't borrow money. They just don't borrow money. because somebody told them to one time, and they go, I like not being in debt. I can sleep better. And that's their entire analysis, you know. Me, I've got analysis, and I can do the country boy thing too and say, I just sleep better. Bring on a pandemic. I got cash.